welcome back to Delivering Recovery. I am really excited today to have as our guest Jason Coombs. Jason is the founder and CEO of Brick House Recovery. And I was looking back at the very earliest days of when I started Vista back in 2016. And I hadn't realized, Jason, I think you were our third client altogether. It was
Wow.
back in early or in the fall of 2016 that you started working with us. And then there was some ons and offs, and I'd love to talk more about that later. But I wanted to really start out by asking you to tell us your story. What led you to start Brickhouse Recovery?
That's such a good question to ponder, and I have a lot of different ways that I answer that question depending on the audience. And given this audience, um, I am a person in long-term recovery. The uh, the professional background that I have is in the sales area. I was in advertising, television ads in particular. Um, After I completed college, and that's right around the time that my substance use disorder took hold, and that was following an injury after a car accident. Uh, the result of that car accident was one of my coworkers introduced me to a doctor that was running a pain management clinic, and that clinic ended up getting um, rated and was a part. Actually, it was the first OxyContin drug ring that was rated in the state of Utah, and it was the largest OxyContin drug ring in the state of Utah. So after the doctor was unable to continue prescribing to me, I turned to the streets, and of course that's when um, a a seemingly manageable opiate dependence turned into a full-blown addiction and dependence on heroin, and that led to crack cocaine and alcohol and all of the things. The demise of my addiction ultimately did cost me my career as well as my marriage and um, everything. So when I when I ultimately faced those charges, I was charged with four felonies and two misdemeanors for being a part of that um, doctor shopping and insurance fraud drug ring. The uh, the end result was I was court ordered to treatment, and that was my introduction to treatment. It was uh, it was government run. It was I was surrounded by, and this is good context for one of the direction that we're going in terms of what the alumni program and what the program Breakouts Recovery is based upon. A lot of it is stems from the genesis of my first introduction to treatment, where I was surrounded by individuals who were either in pre-contemplation stage of change, did not want to recover, but were caught, like
Mhm.
myself, and were facing legal consequences, but were still trying to sneak drugs in, and that was happening. Cheating drug tests was happening. I was involved in that, and it was all chalked off to recovery. We were all in recovery um, because we were going to meetings and we were in treatment. But with all of that going on, it can it can really leave a bad taste in your mouth of what treatment is and what you see recovery being. So fast forward through 5 rounds of treatment, and a lot more loss and so forth. The the outcome was in the fifth treatment program. This one was different. This one was based on someone's own volition to be there. So when I showed up and I remember walking in the front door And this was after a drug-induced psychosis where I was having audible and visual hallucinations and had barricaded myself in a little crack house apartment. And it was a very dark, lonely place to be, and wound up in the psych ward and detox before I went into this treatment center. But to get to the part of the story with what was different is, you know, I kind of felt like I knew how to do treatment. I could kind of skate through. I knew the language, what to say. Um, I figured out how to maneuver my way through as far as like letting the disease run wild and the ego. Uh, the problem with that in this particular place is that it wasn't the staff that was getting on me for it. It was the residents, the clients. They said, "Hey, man, if you want to do that kind of bull crap," they didn't say that, but I'll spare you the colorful language that they use. They said, "You can go pack your stuff and leave." Like these were the clients saying this. You can pack your stuff and leave if you're not serious about recovery. And that was new to me. That was completely different. And that was what changed everything for me.
So it was the fact that everyone there with you was serious. I know my daughter has talked about similar things when she had to go to uh, a required treatment center, and she said all everyone could talk about was they were going to leave there and go, where were they going to go drinking and using? You know, it was just so. I unfortunately. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of places where it's very difficult to recover. Brickhouse Recovery is doing a wonderful job of helping people recover. What led you to help figure out how this could work best?
You know, I did realize in in that program a few things that that contribute to the genesis of opening Brickhouse Recovery. Number one is that not all treatment centers are trying to get over on clients. Not all treatment centers are in it for the money. Not all treatment centers are institutions that are only focused on being authoritarian and connected to the justice system, where you're a client, you know, walking on eggshells, afraid to get honest. And not all treatment centers house people who are in pre-contemplation, and that was a huge breakthrough for me. So as my path after sobriety, um, just in quick short order, for the sake of time, I got a job selling hot dogs right out of residential treatment, and I met a gentleman when he asked me, you know, how my day was. You know, people in early sobriety, we struggle with the classic overshare, and that's where I said, he said, how was your day? And I said, great. I'm 72 days sober off crack cocaine and heroin, and you know, I did lose my wife, and I've been homeless and been out of jail, but I just got out of treatment, and I'm doing well now. And he, you know, he was just like, whoa, that's a lot of information to be sharing at a hot dog stand out in front of Home Depot. But I will tell you that he leaned in and kind of quieted his voice, and he asked me what I would recommend, because his son was struggling and he didn't know how to help him. And I was in that unique spot where I could overshare, and be completely open about what my father did, that I used against him, that I manipulated, that didn't help, and what he started doing that did help, and the things that he learned through the treatment experiences that I went through. Some offered family programs, and So seeds were being planted with my parents, and they learned how to get off the beach, which is one of the metaphors that they learned in treatment, which I share about in my book. But ultimately, that man, that gentleman, needed help in that moment with some guidance, and I was in a perfect position to do that. And we hugged after 45 minutes of talking, and I don't know whatever happened to him or his son, but I do know that that was the moment when I realized that I knew what I was going to do with my life. Was I was going to help people with substance use disorder. I was going to help people, the families in particular. I have a huge passion for the families. And so that I got a job working in an adolescent treatment center right after that. And then I worked at a sober living facility with Dr. Kevin McCauley, who produced the Pleasure Unwoven DVD and videos. Is a pioneer in changing how we view the disease model of addiction in the industry. And I got mentored by him. And then I went back to the treatment center. I went through the fifth one and I worked there and I was a manager there. Um, and ultimately opened up Brickhouse Recovery, wanted to do it um, on, I guess not do it on my own, but I was inspired to do it, and so that's how Brickhouse opened was going through that process, and of course there's a lot more to that story, but that answers your question.
Oh, that's phenomenal story. Phenomenal. It really is upsetting how many people are dealing with addiction out there. And I think you mentioned to me for every person dealing with addiction, you think there's six or seven others who are, dealing with the ramifications and the worry and the concern. And that number sounds about right to me. Well, it, I hope that man and his son got better too. So, can you step back a bit and talk about, just explain to everyone how Brickhouse Recovery is structured, what type of patients you serve, where you're located, that sort of thing?
Sure. Yeah, and yeah, in effort to not make this a an advertisement for Brickhouse, because nobody really probably wants to hear about us. But I will share that we are located in Idaho. I have three locations plus a telehealth location, and we do all outpatient treatment. So PHP, IOP, and general outpatient, which is mainly our alumni program, which we'll talk about. The uh, the the areas that we're in are like the furthest corners of the state of Idaho. And we have great relationships with the residential treatment programs here. Um, so do you want to talk a little bit about the programs in particular, or where would you like to
Well,
go?
I think people need to know it's basically 4 weeks of PHP and then IOP and into outpatient. But it's very rural, most of your programs, right? And very high percentage of methamphetamine addiction, which we know is particularly difficult to recover from. So just dealing with and most of your patients are on Medicaid, right? So you're dealing with, just really a very difficult population.
Yeah, yes, both of those are true. Some of our locations are we have one in Boise,
Yeah.
which is less rural, obviously. Uh, Coeur d'Alene is very rural up in North Idaho. It's near Spokane, Washington. We see a lot of fentanyl up in North Idaho. Uh, a lot of trafficking coming through the panhandle of the state between Montana and Washington. And then in Idaho Falls, which is southeast Idaho, we do see a lot of methamphetamine, fentanyl as well. And at all three of our locations in Idaho, alcohol is the primary substance that we're facing, which I think a lot is a result of the pandemic and individuals doing day drinking and so forth. But yeah, we've seen a spike in alcohol, but I would say that alcohol has always been the primary substance ever since we opened 12 years ago.
That is true across the whole country, but you do have a higher percentage of meth use, a primary drug of choice, than most of our other centers. That's why I brought it up. So you have named each of your different sections very interesting names. Can you talk a little bit about how you divvy up and what you focus on in each of the different levels of care, and use that to tell us some more about what makes your alumni program so unusual?
Yes, uh, it was I would say a year and a half ago. I recognized that the perception from the clients viewing the program in phases based on ASAM criteria wasn't really resonating with them. That there wasn't a meaning for them, and I had an epiphany when I was going back through my treatment experience. I was like, man, the true change is identity change. Like, can I attach to a new identity and take on that label? Because when we see ourselves as people in long-term recovery, even if we're early in sobriety, but if we take on the identity as I am a person in recovery, and then we act as though we are that. And so I recognized that we needed to create an identity around each phase of our three-phased program. And the first phase is called the chain breaker. So when you are in the chain breaker program, typically is your PHP stint. Uh, but if you come in at our intensive or enhanced IOP, which is 5 days a week IOP, um, they also start in the chain breaker program. So it's not attached to level of care. It's
Okay.
attached to the first phase of the curriculum. And in that phase, it's about stabilization. It's about dialing in, obviously, the medications and assisting with behaviors and of course the pause, your post-acute withdrawal symptoms and so forth. Once you're through the chain breaker program, then you become a change maker. And the change maker, that is where we've put a lot of emphasis on emotional sobriety. We are a faith-based program. This is different than being a religious-based. We invite our clients to scuba dive into deeper meaning and purpose for them. Um, Whatever their higher power is, we are framed around the 12-step model. That's what worked for me. I realized that doesn't have to work for everybody, and there are a lot of pathways to recovery, but that is the pathway that I subscribe to, having gone through the 12-step model myself. Uh, so when they're walking through the steps from step two, discovering their higher power and building their relationship with their higher power, and then getting into the amends steps and the 10-step inventory and the service part. Like, this process is really about not only changing within themselves, it's identifying as I am a change maker, meaning I'm breaking chains for generations in my family. I am the link that is going to break that chain of addiction. I am the disruptor. And I'm going to own this new identity of being a change maker, and I'm going to go out and make a difference in the lives of others, starting with the newcomer, starting with those that are in the chain breaker program, those that are walking in the door, that I'm going to focus on mentoring them. I'm going to focus on reaching my hand out to help them because I'm a change maker. Like I'm not just in IOP. Nobody cares if you're in IOP except for maybe the probation officer. But when you are able to identify, like, this is who I am right now, this is the phase I'm in, and I'm completing this phase, then you do see change happen because they act as if they are in alignment with their identity that they're wanting to take on. And then the third phase is the hope dealer, and this is where we really encourage them to focus on pointing outward and lifting others, being a messenger, going out into the community and being a sponsor, sharing their message, being a speaker, writing their book. I really encourage all my clients to do what I did and take their story and write a book and publish a book and help people with their experiences. Some have opened up treatment centers. We're trying to raise up the next crop of professionals in the industry. We're trying to organically grow our successors, the recovery coaches that will then become, treatment, uh, maybe treatment leaders. Maybe they go into becoming a therapist. Maybe they go into opening up their own treatment programs. And yeah, the whole idea of going through the three stages is giving them a vision to work towards. We don't promise them a job, but we encourage them by, I do hire a lot of alumni, and that is, I think, the secret to why our alumni program is so strong is because people want what these coaches, these recovery coaches have, that have been in their shoes, and we do some cool things with that. We recognize them by, we have this really cool Hope Dealer jacket that they earn. And if I may, I would love to just share this image.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, okay. You're sharing yours. Okay, cool.
yeah. So I'm just going to throw this up, but this is one of our alumni who's rocking the Hope Dealer jacket, and his name is Bryce. And I will tell you, these guys are crazy about wanting this jacket. They cannot wait to get it. And you would think that it was like winning $1 million. Like, and people in the past that we didn't have the jackets available for them, they're asking, how do I get mine? How do I get mine? And so it's this really cool um, identity piece, like, to wear this around. And of course, you see how proud he is to rock it with his tie, and he's dressed up. And Bryce is someone that we have hired and is just a phenomenal example of what a hope dealer is. But it's a really fun program, and I think the component that attracts people to our alumni is when you first come into treatment. As I mentioned, there is an instant distrust. Are they in it for the money? Do they really care about me, and do they get me? Like, there's just this struggle because it's this entity that I think that's one of the reasons people don't want to jump into treatment. Is it's like, I don't I don't need them. Um, I know I need help, but I don't know if I can. Anyway, it's just this whole loop that I remember going through every time I went into treatment. And one way that I overcome that is by saying, hey, look, we all know that there are treatment centers out there that are in it for the wrong reasons. We all know that there are treatment programs that are banking on relapse for repeat business. We see it out there. They're in the news. There's documentaries written about this. There, we have a black eye in this industry does in the marketplace. and that's fair. And then I share with them, look, in my first treatment program, I got kicked out for um, taking a shower 10 minutes too late after shower time. They kicked me out. They discharged me, and then they brought me back in a week later. And I learned it was because my funding restarted. And so because my funding wasn't, they used all the meat on the bone. If they discharged me, then they could justify bringing me back in to restart the funding. And so I know what it feels like to have deep distrust. Not to mention that my therapist got or counselor, he got fired because he was using. And so I had a really sour taste in my mouth when it came to treatment. And I share the story with the new client or the prospect. And then I say, but what I want you to know is that I'm going to invest in your long-term sobriety. I want you to come through one time. I want you to keep coming back, but I want you to come back as an alumni. I want you to come back as someone who's not needing us, but feels like this is a home base where you can be of service to help people and to continue to get support. And I'm gonna invest in your long-term sobriety by offering you the lifetime advantage. And the lifetime advantage program is that if you go through all of the phases and you graduate, and you agree to the benchmarks of our lifetime advantage program, which that requires, weekly actions that are, meeting attendance, contacting recovery coach, being uh, uh, willing to come in for random UAs if asked, doing service hours, uh, recovery oriented actions. There's a list of them, and it phases through the 18 months post graduation. One of those requirements is they have to complete their Vista surveys, which is another incentive because we want that feedback, um, and we never know if they're doing it or not. We just go off their word because obviously that's anonymous. But the cool thing about this is if they ever need a tune-up down the road, and I say I understand this is a chronic relapse disease, and if down the road you need to come back for a tune-up, I will bring you back at no cost out of pocket.
That's fantastic.
And that
That's
instantly
fantastic.
tells them I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it for the relapse.
Mhm.
It's not in my best interest to hold you back from success. I want you to thrive and to shine. And they feel that. They know I'm being genuine. And then when they see people earning the lifetime advantage, and they're in the alumni program and they're repping their jackets. Like tomorrow, I'm driving up to Coeur d'Alene because we're having our annual alumni camp out. And there are going to be a bunch of people wearing those jackets up at this camp out. And it's just the thrill of my life to see how they've taken on identity, because true change is identity change. And not all people think recovery is cool, just like I didn't think it was, because I saw the dark side of it and they called that recovery. But if we can help them see, like, no, recovery equals emotional sobriety. Recovery equals thriving and building a career for yourself where you can take your mess and make it your message, and you can take all your pain and you can turn it into your purpose, and you can package it up and create a platform where you can share it, whether it's writing a book or speaking or opening up a treatment center or just being a football coach for your kids and you're sharing hope to them, like whatever that venue is for them. And that's really how the magic of our alumni program has continued to grow, and it's really peer run, and they base the value off of each other, and they're relying on each other, and they have a loyalty to each other. And that's so much better, so much more effective than us trying as a staff, trying to get them to be loyal to the alumni.
Well, it sounds to me, listening to you talk, like there's two elements that really make the alumni program work as well as it does. One is that the focus is on helping other people. It's going back to that story you told at the very beginning, that when you realize that you could use your experience to help this father with his son, that feels really good. And if you can give that kind of experience to all of your patients in early recovery, they will feel how helpful that is. So there's a lot of emphasis on helping others, but there's also, you've made it a lot of fun, right? I mean, you just talked about, you said every year you have a 3-day camp trip, camping out and barbecue and stuff. What are some of the other things you do with the group that make it really cool to be a member of the Hope Dealers?
Yeah, we've done a lot of fun things. Our locations are all near bodies of water. So in the summertime, paddleboarding and spending time out in those rivers and lakes. Uh, we have done uh, cold plunges together where I'll bring in my ice
Perfect.
bath and we do a challenge. And what's cool is like the female clients seem to always lead the way. They're like, okay, never done this before, but I'll do it first. And the guys are hanging back like so scared to do it. And you go first, you go first. And the ladies are like, I'm in. And it's so fun to watch. And then we do um we do seasonal holiday things, so we'll do like a trunk or treat at the locations for Halloween. And they're all ideas that the alumni committees create. So each location has their own alumni committee, and those committees uh, propose a budget to the recovery coach staff, and then the recovery coach staff is allowed, like I give them a budget to run the alumni. So if you want a few $100s to put on a big barbecue and invite all the alumni, let's do that. If you're gonna, have a camp out, like yeah, let's go big. And so we have a Southern Idaho camp out in 3 weeks. This weekend is the Northern Idaho camp out. Um, so it's definitely an investment in creating these opportunities for gathering and connection and then reaching out to those that are a little bit more distant. And then, we'll always have in those agendas like speaker meetings. And so we'll invite some of the alumni that have, you know, maybe they've been 5 years sober and they've built a life for themselves. So they're not at the weekly alumni meeting. They're not contributing as much. And we invite them back, which then a bunch of their friends, their tribe come too. So then it's like reignites that older cohort that is thriving, and it's just a really beautiful thing.
That is wonderful. One of the last things that I want you to talk a little bit about is your graduation parties, because over the years you've told me some wonderful stories from those graduations.
The ceremonies are a big deal. Not only do our ceremony give the individual who's completing an opportunity to practice public speaking, but it gives the families an opportunity as well to share their journey and also honor their addicted loved one who has put in a lot of work, but be honored as well. So we really do uh, emphasize the importance of invite your family to come to these because this is for them. This is so much bigger than just about the person coming through treatment. I heard it once shared that it's like the whole family's driving down the freeway in a SUV, and there's this big rollover accident, and one of the individuals in the family gets flown out and has injuries that require being life flighted to the ICU hospital, and so all the attention goes to that one individual, and everybody's putting attention, like caring for that one who has the most severe symptoms. But let's not forget that the whole family was in that accident, and every single person in that vehicle has been affected one way or another. their symptoms just might not be the most glaring. And so it's so important to address the family level. And those ceremonies um, start with the staff honoring the completion and honoring like the journey that the graduate and their families have gone through, and then the graduate gets an opportunity to speak and to share. Um, those are heartwarming, powerful messages for me to hear and the staff to hear, because it's like our payday. But for the newcomer, that is life changing to hear where they are, where they once were, and to be able to see a vision just a little bit out in the distance of what they could achieve if they put their heart and soul into this. And then the family gets up if they would like, and we give them an opportunity to share. And I've seen family members. I saw a spouse. Her husband was in our program, and at graduation, she walked up to the front. She had divorce papers, and they were signed, and they were going to be submitted. And she held them while her husband was in treatment because she just felt like she needed to wait and see. And she stood up there and she ripped them up in front of the entire room and dropped them on the floor. And then she began to talk about the change that she's seen, not only in him, but the change that she saw in herself as she was engaged in the family side of the program, and just the love that they felt for one another. Again, the love that they felt for their kids. And then to have their kids get up, like the teenagers, even the adolescents, like 10 years old, getting up and sharing what it means to have their daddy back, and what it like for the 10-year-old to say, daddy, I know you can stay sober and I know you can do this, please do it for us. And just like the whole room is in tears. It's just a very powerful uh beautiful like moment for the families, and then all of us are just witnesses to this beautiful experience. um and then there's some formalities in that, but then we open it up to the peers, those that went through the program with that graduate, and they get to share what that graduate did for them, what they learned from them, the times that that individual reached out to them when they were having a hard time, and what they mean to each other. And those connections, like, you can't fabricate those and you can't force those just happen. And then we really try to memorialize and honor those in those ceremonies, so that it is very like heartfelt and genuine and not mechanic. Sometimes those ceremonies go 3 hours, and
And you do this every month?
we do this every month. Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Well, I would
every
love
month.
to hear more and more, but I'm afraid we're going to have to stop here. Jason, thank you so much for coming and sharing your experiences. I do want to tell the group as a whole that our data shows that among the patients that went through the alumni program for at least a month, they have 38% higher abstinence rate at 1 year post-treatment than the patients that don't go through the alumni program. So I mean, that makes a huge, huge difference in the likelihood they're going to be able to stay in recovery. So, anyway, thank you so much, Jason, for joining us today, and talk again soon.
Thank you for having me.